tragedy. Now we have to see Aristotle's view on tragedy. Aristotle is considered to be the first and greatest Greek philosopher. He lived between 384 to 322 BC. The studies and speculations of Aristotle covered every intellectual field of which men of his time were aware, and his writing on philosophy, politics, and science dominated European thought. For 17 centuries after his death, many of the ideas of modern critics and students of literature are derived, namely Aristotle. The student of literature is invariably expected to make an acquaintance with the poetics. In this book, Aristotle considered poetry in general and in part 2 tragedy in particular. He defines tragedy. Tragedy is an imitation of an action that is important, entire, and of a certain magnitude by language embellished and made pleasurable, and using the method not narration but of action, effecting thought through pity and fear, a purgation of these emotions. Aristotle uses the word catharsis for purgation, and these emotions Aristotle uses the word catharsis for purgation, which is medically flavored term which implies an interior cleansing by means of some sort of purgative. Yet, though it imitates an action, there is difference between the real and the imitate. When the audience observes a play or a reader reads it, they seem to enjoy certain parts of it, but they do not get similar or in the same propagation enjoyment when they observe a real lifetime event. Mostly they are ignored. Most of the people are not moved at the sight of suffering persons because they exclude themselves from the by. When they see a tragedy, we get satisfaction. For example, from the self-blinding of Oedipus, it is not because it is all drama, but because of the condition of the Oedipus, which moves one to pity. It seems to be a fact also has the capacity for pity and for fear. The feeling of certain amount of fear is a psychological need which is satisfied by a volunteer adventure. Most of the emotions do not get an outlet in everyday life, and if they are repressed, they cause harm. Such emotions are realized by seeing or reading a tragedy and realize is good for man. It is the thing which Aristotle meant by saying that tragedy effect a catharsis of the passion of pity and fear. Aristotle theory applies to person in the modern world also. Tragedy is made up of the story, character, poetry, stage setting, music, etc. Aristotle says that the story or plot is most important. This is made more effective by what he calls anagoris. Agnosis, sudden recognition or discovery, and peripecia or reverse of situation. Aristotle thought that the best effect was produced when anagnorisis is followed by peripecia, and it happens in play King Oedipus. In Hamlet also, there is clear peripecia. In the New Testament, the story of Diver and Lazarus is a good example of peripety. And in King Henry V, the traitors Cambridge Scroop the Grey urged the king of show no mercy to those who appear destroyer, thus unwittingly arguing their own condemnation. The effectiveness of sudden recognition of the state is obvious. In Chauffeury, Electra first recognizes her brother by lock of hair which he has laid and tone. The first interesting and relevant part of the Poetics is Aristotle's analysis of the character of the tragic hero. If a protagonist in drama is wholly virtuous and admirable, his fall from prosperity to adversity will seem to the audience shocking and disgusting. On the other hand, if he is wholly bad, his fall will cause satisfaction and not pity. It is poetic justice. The viewer or the reader generally feels that the villain should be duly punished, but in genuine tragedy, the hero should be a person duly punished. Neither eminently virtuous or not having deliberate vice, but with some error of human frailty. Aristotle uses the word hamartia for it to understand a tragedy. The conception of hamartia should be understood. It is relevant to the modern tragedy also. It is what differentiates true tragedy from the melodrama. It means everyone is endowed with some human weakness, and reader or audience identifies himself with the tragic hero. This brings out the catharsis. Many tragic heroes of Shakespeare have some human weakness. The conflict between two kings of good is proper material for tragedy. It should be moral conflict In Antigone of Sophocles, the heroine is subject to such a conflict. She wants to bury her brother, which is her duty, and the law of the state forbade it for the reason specified in the law. For example, Hegel worked out the theory of tragedy as a moral conflict. Aristotle agreed with that, and the tragic character should be great and dignified, and the most of the endowed with some pride. The excess of it causes the fall. These are the views of the Aristotle on tragedy. Then after we have Shakespeare's view and Julius Caesar on tragedy. We will continue in the next lecture. Okay, thank you.